May 19, 1962. Madison Square Garden. Backstage. She can't breathe. The dress is sewn onto her skin. No zipper. No escape. Just 2,500 rhinestones and 45 minutes until she has to walk onto that stage. Her hands are shaking. Not from nerves, from lack of oxygen. This is Marilyn Monroe, the most famous woman in the world, and she is suffocating inside her own costume. That morning, the call came from 20th Century Fox, the studio executives, her employers, her owners. The message was clear: if you perform tonight, you're fired. We own you. We own your time. We own your image. And tonight, you belong to us, not to the president. She hung up the phone. She looked at the dress hanging on the rack. Nude fabric, covered in crystals, designed to make her disappear and become pure spectacle. And she made her decision. This is not a story about a performance. This is a story about a trap. A $12,000 trap that took 3 weeks to create and 3 months to destroy the woman inside it. Because that dress, it wasn't just tight. It wasn't just tight. It was a symbol of everything Hollywood did to her, everything fame demanded from her. And when she walked onto that stage in front of 15,000 people to sing Happy Birthday to the President of the United States, she wasn't just performing, she was saying goodbye. Let's go back. 3 months earlier, February 1962. Marilyn Monroe is on the set of Something's Got to Give at Fox Studios. The film is a disaster. She's late every day. Sometimes she doesn't show up at all. The director, George Cukor, is furious. The producers are panicking. They've invested millions, and their star is unraveling. But here's what they don't tell you in the Hollywood history books. They don't tell you why she couldn't get out of bed. They don't tell you about the pills, the insomnia, the panic attacks, the fact that Marilyn Monroe, the character, was killing Norma Jean, the woman. The studio system in 1962 worked like this. You signed a contract. That contract meant they controlled everything. When you worked, what you wore, who you dated, what you said in public. You weren't a person, you were intellectual property. And Marilyn, she'd been property since 1946. 16 years of being told to smile wider, speak softer, dye her hair blighter, lose more weight. 16 years of being Marilyn Monroe, while Norma Jean Baker drowned somewhere underneath all that peroxide and red lipstick. Her contract with Fox had a morality clause, a behavior clause, a schedule clause. She owed them one more film. Something's Got to Give was supposed to be a comeback, a romantic comedy, light, fluffy, safe, but Marilyn was done being safe. In her diary, April 1962, she wrote, "They want the mask, they panic when they see my face, but I'm so tired of holding it up, my arms hurt." You need to understand something. By 1962, Marilyn Monroe wasn't a woman playing a role. She was a role that a woman had to play to survive, and that woman was dying. Then the call came. Peter Lawford, actor, Kennedy family insider, smooth talker. He was organizing a birthday gala for President John F. Kennedy at Madison Square Garden. A fundraiser, a spectacle. The biggest stars in America would be there, and he wanted Marilyn to sing Happy Birthday to the president. Not just sing it, perform it, make it memorable, make it sexy, make it Marilyn. The date? May 19th, right in the middle of her shooting schedule for Something's Got to Give. She said yes immediately. The studio found out within hours. The executives called her at home. The message was delivered by her agent. Cold, corporate, legal. You are contractually obligated to be on set May 19th. If you leave Los Angeles, we will consider it a breach of contract. We will suspend you without pay. We will sue for damages, and we will destroy your career. This wasn't a warning, it was a threat. Fox had done it before to other actors who stepped out of line. They would blacklist you, spread rumors, make sure you never worked in this town again. Marilyn knew this. She'd seen it happen. But she didn't cancel the performance. She commissioned the dress in late April. The designer was Jean Louis, legendary costumer. He'd dressed Rita Hayworth, Marlene Dietrich, the biggest stars in Hollywood. Marilyn went to his studio in Beverly Hills. She told him exactly what she wanted. "I want to look naked. I want to look like I'm covered in diamonds and nothing else. I want every eye in that room on me." Jean Louis sketched it out. Nude souffle fabric, so sheer it was almost transparent, covered entirely in hand-sewn rhinestones, 2,500 of them, each one individually placed. The dress would cost $12,000. In 1962 dollars, that's over $120,000 today. For one dress, for one performance, for one song. Here's where it gets dark. The dress had no zipper, no clasps, no way to put it on like a normal piece of clothing. Jean Louis explained the construction to her. "We will sew you into it. On the day of the performance, the fabric is too delicate for fasteners. It has to be stitched directly onto your body." Marilyn nodded. She understood. This wasn't a dress. It was a second skin, or maybe a straitjacket. Jean Louis later said in an interview, years after her death, she asked me how tight it would be. I told her she wouldn't be able to sit down. She said, "Good, I don't want to be comfortable. Comfortable is boring." But listen to what she's really saying. She doesn't want to be comfortable because Marilyn Monroe was never allowed to be comfortable. Norma Jean wanted rest. Marilyn had to be spectacular. The conflict escalated. Fox executives met with her personally. They brought lawyers. They showed her the contract. Paragraph 7, Section C. The artist agrees to make herself available for all scheduled production days unless prevented by illness or act of God. They told her, "Singing for the president is not an act of God. You will be on set May 19th, or you will be fired." She sat there in that meeting, silent, smoking a cigarette, and then she stood up and walked out. No explanation, no negotiation, just gone. Why did she do it? Why risk everything for one performance? The easy answer is the obvious one. The affair, the rumors, Marilyn and JFK, the Secret Service visits, the private phone calls, the weekends at Peter Lawford's beach house. Everyone in Hollywood knew, the press suspected, but nobody could prove it. And Marilyn, she thought maybe she loved him, or maybe she just loved the idea that the President of the United States wanted her. Not Marilyn Monroe the character, but her, the real, her, Norma Jean, who never felt wanted by anyone. But there's a darker layer underneath. In her diary, May 10th, 9 days before the performance, she wrote, "He doesn't call anymore. Peter makes excuses, says he's busy, says it's complicated, but I know what busy means. It means disposable. It means you were fun, but now you're a problem." The Kennedy family was distancing themselves. Too much attention, too much risk. Marilyn was becoming a liability, and she knew it. So why perform? Because it was the only card she had left. If she got on that stage, in that dress, in front of 15,000 people and national television cameras, they couldn't pretend she didn't exist. They couldn't erase her quietly. She would make herself undeniable one last time. May 19th arrived. She flew from Los Angeles to New York that morning. Fox found out. The studio sent telegrams, legal threats. They suspended her officially at 11:47 a.m. Pacific time. She was fired before she even landed in New York. She didn't care. Or maybe she did care, but she was too far gone to stop. The performance was scheduled for 10 p.m. She arrived at Madison Square Garden at 6 p.m., 4 hours to prepare. Jean Louis was waiting backstage with the dress and a needle and thread. The fitting took 90 minutes. She stood there, nearly naked, while Jean Louis and 2 assistants stretched the fabric over her body and began stitching. The seams went up her sides, along her back. The fabric was so tight that every breath was visible, every heartbeat. One of the assistants later recalled, "She kept asking if we could make it looser, just a little bit." But Jean Louis said no, it has to be this tight, or the illusion doesn't work. She needs to look poured into it. She said, "I feel like I'm drowning." He said, "You look perfect." At 9:30 p.m., she was supposed to be in the wings, ready to go on. She wasn't there. Peter Lawford was introducing acts. Ella Fitzgerald, Jack Benny, Maria Callas, big names, huge stars. The crowd was electric. The energy was peak. And Marilyn was still backstage, sitting on a folding chair, hunched over, trying to breathe. A stagehand asked if she was okay. She didn't answer, just stared at herself in the mirror, at the dress, at Marilyn Monroe, looking back at her. Was this a woman looking at her reflection? Or a ghost looking at her killer? 10:04 p.m. She's 4 minutes late. Peter Lawford is on stage, stalling, making jokes. The teleprompter keeps flashing her cue. The stage manager is panicking. The Secret Service agents are looking at each other. Something's wrong. And then backstage, she stands up, slowly. The dress doesn't bend with her. It forces her upright, like armor, or a cage. She takes one step, then another. The rhinestones catch the backstage lights, 2,500 tiny mirrors reflecting back at her. She looks down at her hands. They're shaking, not from nerves, from the simple act of existing inside this thing. A stagehand offers his arm. She waves him off. "I can do it." Can she? Peter Lawford sees her in the wings. Relief floods his face. He turns back to the microphone. That famous introduction. "Mr. President, the late Marilyn Monroe." The late. He said the late. It was supposed to be a joke about her being tardy, always late. Classic Marilyn. The audience laughed, but listen to it again. In 3 months, it wouldn't be a joke anymore. It would be a prophecy. She heard it, backstage, and for just a second, her face does something strange. Not a smile, not a frown, something else. Resignation, maybe, or recognition. She steps into the light. The white fur coat is draped over her shoulders. Ermine, borrowed from the studio wardrobe department without permission. One last theft. She walks slowly to the microphone. Center stage, Madison Square Garden, 15,000 people. And they can't see the dress yet, just the coat. The anticipation is unbearable. The cameras are focused. The president is in the VIP box, front row. Jackie Kennedy is notably absent. She refused to attend. She knew. Everyone knew. And then Marilyn does it. She lets the coat drop. The gasp from the crowd is audible on the recording. You can hear it. 15,000 people inhaling at once. Because she doesn't look dressed. She looks naked. The nude fabric against her skin creates an optical illusion. From a distance, the rhinestones look like they're floating on bare flesh. She is simultaneously covered and exposed. Decent and obscene. Legal and scandalous. This is the trap of Marilyn Monroe. She has to be sexy but not sexual. Desirable but not dangerous. Available but untouchable. And this dress, it's all of those contradictions sewn into fabric and stitched onto her body. She leans into the microphone, and she starts to sing, "Happy Birthday to You." But it doesn't sound like a birthday song. It sounds like something else. Breathy, slow, almost painful. People always describe it as seductive, sultry, the sexiest rendition of Happy Birthday ever performed. But listen closer. That breathiness, that's not an act. That's a woman who physically cannot fill her lungs. The dress is too tight. The boning is crushing her rib cage. Every word is a fight for oxygen. Happy birthday, Mr. President. She's not seducing him. She's suffocating in front of him, and 15,000 people are applauding it. The performance lasts 90 seconds. 90 seconds of the most analyzed footage in American pop culture history. Body language experts, voice analysts, conspiracy theorists. Everyone has studied this moment. But here's what they miss. Watch her hands. Throughout the entire song, she never stops clutching the microphone stand. Knuckles white. Not because she's nervous, because she's holding herself upright. The dress doesn't allow her to bend at the waist. If she lets go, she might fall. And Marilyn Monroe cannot fall. Not in front of the president. Not in front of America. Not in front of the cameras. So she holds on. And she sings. And she smiles. And underneath that smile, Norma Jean is screaming. It's over. The coat goes back on. She walks off stage. The crowd is still roaring. Peter Lawford rushes to her. "You were incredible. Perfect. The president loved it." She doesn't respond. The cameras caught her face in that moment, right after she exits the spotlight, and the smile disappears. Instantly, like someone turned off a switch. That's the moment you need to see, not the performance. The second after, when Marilyn Monroe stops being Marilyn Monroe and becomes Norma Jean again, and Norma Jean looks exhausted, hollow, used up. The after-party happened at the apartment of Arthur Krim, president of United Artists, the elite of American power, politicians, Hollywood executives, millionaires. Marilyn attended, still in the dress, because remember, she was sewn into it. She couldn't take it off without Jean Louis there to cut her out. Multiple witnesses reported that she could barely move. She stood in corners, leaning against walls, drinking champagne through a straw because she couldn't tilt her head back. One guest, later interviewed, said she looked like a beautiful statue, gorgeous but immobile, trapped in her own beauty. The president spoke to her briefly, 5 minutes, casual conversation, distant, polite, and then he left early. He was done with her. The performance was over. The risk was handled. Time to move on. Midnight. Jean Louis finally cut her out of the dress. Back at her hotel. The mark, Suite 2728. He used surgical scissors, carefully. The dress was worth too much to damage. He cut along the seams, slowly, and when the fabric finally released, Marilyn gasped, a deep, full breath. The first real breath she'd taken in 6 hours. There were marks on her skin, red lines where the boning had pressed into her ribs, indentations from the crystals. Her skin was raw in places. Jean Louis asked if she was all right. She said, "I'm fine. This is what fine looks like." Then she paid him in cash and asked him to leave. May 20th, 1962. The morning after, every newspaper in America ran the story. Marilyn's scandalous serenade. Monroe's birthday striptease for JFK. The dress that stopped traffic. The photographs were everywhere. Front page. The image was iconic instantly, but the reviews were vicious. The press called her desperate, inappropriate, unprofessional, a publicity stunt. Fox Studios released an official statement. Miss Monroe has been terminated from Something's Got to Give, effective immediately due to breach of contract and unprofessional conduct. She was fired, publicly, humiliated, but she got what she wanted, didn't she? She was undeniable, unforgettable. The whole world was talking about her, except the one person she wanted to talk to her. The president never called again. June, July, August. The months collapsed. She tried to get the Fox contract reinstated. Negotiations happened. The studio offered to take her back, but with conditions: lower salary, less creative control, more oversight. The message was clear: you embarrassed us, now you pay. She took meetings, put on the smile, played the game, but something was broken, not just her career, her. In late July, she told her publicist, "I don't know how to be Marilyn anymore. I forgot how to do it. And Norma Jean, I don't think she exists. I think I killed her a long time ago." The publicist thought she was being dramatic, artistic, moody, but she wasn't. She was telling the truth. August 5th, 1962. Brentwood, California, 12/30/05, 5th Helena Drive, her house. She was found dead in her bedroom. Barbiturates, overdose, the official ruling, probable suicide. She was 36 years old. The news hit like an earthquake. The whole world mourned. Marilyn Monroe was dead. The headlines were enormous. The tributes poured in. Flowers, statements, shock, grief, and somewhere in a storage facility in Los Angeles, the dress hung in a garment bag, cleaned, preserved, perfect, waiting. November 17, 2016. Julian's Auctions, Los Angeles. The dress goes up for sale. Lot 701. The Happy Birthday Mr. President dress, worn once, by Marilyn Monroe, May 19, 1962. The estimated value, $2 million. The bidding opens. Numbers climb fast. 2.5 million, $3 million. The room is silent except for the auctioneer's voice. 4 million, 4.5 million. And then, final bid, $4.8 million. Sold. The most expensive dress ever purchased at auction. The buyer, Ripley's, believe it or not. They put it in a museum, behind glass, climate controlled, motion sensors. You cannot touch it. You can only look, and the dress looks perfect, flawless, like it was never worn at all, like no one ever suffocated inside it. Here's what they don't tell you at the museum. They don't tell you that Marilyn was fired the day after she wore it. They don't tell you that she was dead 3 months later. They don't tell you that the dress cost $12,000 in 1962, and a woman's entire life by August. They just tell you it's beautiful, iconic, historic, a piece of American culture, and it is all those things. But it's also evidence. Evidence of what we do to the people we put on pedestals. Evidence of the price of being looked at. Evidence that sometimes the costume becomes the crime scene. In 2022, the dress made headlines again. Kim Kardashian wore it to the Met Gala, borrowed from Ripley's. She had to lose 16 pounds in 3 weeks to fit into it. She could only wear it for minutes, walking up the stairs, for the photographs. Then she had to change, because you can't sit in it, you can't bend, you can't breathe. 60 years later, and the dress still doesn't allow the woman inside it to be human. 60 years later, and we're still doing the same thing, putting women into costumes they can't escape, demanding they perform until they break, applauding the performance and ignoring the pain. Marilyn Monroe wore that dress for 6 hours on May 19, 1962, and when they finally cut her out of it, the marks stayed on her skin for days. But the performance? That lasted forever. That's what we wanted from her. Not her humanity, not her comfort, not her survival. Just the performance, just the image, just Marilyn Monroe in that dress, singing that song, being that fantasy. And she gave it to us. She gave us everything, and we took it all. And then we acted surprised when there was nothing left. The dress is still in the museum. You can visit it if you want. Pay admission, walk through the exhibits, and there it is, behind the glass, the most expensive piece of clothing ever sold, worth millions, priceless, historic, empty. And if you look close enough, if the light hits it just right, you can still see the faint marks on the fabric, where the thread went through, where they sewed her in, where they trapped her inside the thing we wanted her to be. The dress survived. The woman didn't. And maybe that's the point. Maybe that's what fame is. A beautiful cage that outlives the person locked inside it. A costume that becomes more valuable than the human who wore it. A performance that never ends, even after the performer is gone. When does the costume become a cage? The moment we start applauding the suffocation. The moment we pay more for the dress than we ever paid the woman. The moment we preserve the image and forget the person. Marilyn Monroe wore that dress for 6 hours in 1962. And 60 years later, she's still trapped inside it. Still performing, still suffocating, still smiling, still singing happy birthday to men who never called her back. The dress is perfect. The dress is priceless. The dress is eternal. And Marilyn Monroe is dead.